Good evening. This is Liz Whitaker of Divination Station. Today, I will be going over the next installment of Dive into Divination, and it's going to be Intro to I Ching. Nope, there we go. So, I definitely had to do some research on this one. I was not familiar with how I Ching worked. I had a rough idea that it had to do with hexagrams, lines, coins were used. I would always see coins, but I really didn't understand what it was or how it worked. So over the past week, um, I've done some research and watched some videos. Benabel Wen has an I Ching course and has some wonderful materials on her site. So got some information from her. So I'll let a couple people join in. As you're joining in, just say hi. Let me know you're here. Go ahead and share the broadcast out, which is what I'm going to do right now. So I Ching is literal translation is the book of changes, and I think that's initially where I would get confused or just didn't really think too much about it. What is the book of changes? How is this book of changes? What divination how is this used for divination? And I never really looked into it too much. Because I really didn't have too many, I didn't really have a reason to. So it was good learning for me to do some research on a method of divination that I'm not familiar with. So the I Ching is the book of changes. Almost ready here. I'm sorry. So the book of changes is as a text one of the oldest kind of philosophical texts. It started off as kind of philosophy and way of thought. So I am going to very much use my notes today. Because again, I don't have a lot of this right off my head. So the literal meaning is Book of Changes or Classic of Changes. It's an ancient Chinese divination text and is of the most, it's one of the oldest Chinese texts known. So what is it used for? So essentially, the I Ching is a system that's been used to predict the future. It's also a book of wisdom. The readings it gives are simple, yet elegant, profound, and intuitive, and it's consulted for advice and insight into human nature. And that is from Benabel Wen. To read the I Ching, and this is from me, you would either use something like a coin toss or yarrow sticks to create and get the numbers for the hexagram. So the hexagram, hex is 6, right? So it's basically 6 lines. So, and I'll go into the different methods in a moment. So you get the lines, you get a corresponding number, and then you look at the I Ching for for that corresponding number. Okay. It's also used in bibliomancy, so picking it up and flipping to a page and reading that passage. So I do have, this is the only I Ching book that I actually have, and I'm just dropping stuff here. And this is one that I got in a book, lot of books that I purchased. So Symbols of Love, it's I Ching for relationships, and I got it and I tried to read it and I'm like, okay, I don't understand this, because I didn't really have that full understanding of what the I Ching was. So just for an example, this page here, 22, adorning. So this is the hexagram right there. Okay, so you see the lines, it's a full line, two broken lines, a full line, a broken line, and a full line. Ugh. Those are the 6 lines. That's the hexagram. So those lines represent yin and yang. So the first round of I Ching was symbols only. Yin is a single line, yang is the broken line. So yin is yin and yang, right? Yin is masculine, creative, it's doing, it's action and advancing. Yang is feminine, supportive, being and feeling, and resting. So here I'm thinking yin, magician energy, right? Yang, high priestess energy. So just to put that in tarot context, because that's what I'm most familiar with, and it's everything else is a combination of that. So the original 8 trigrams, 3. So we have the 3 lines, and that's the bagua. So if you see that hexagram with the Asian symbols in it, that's what that is. And you see those lines, you see those sets of lines. That's what those are. It's the original I Ching. So the original 8 trigrams represent 8 forces in nature: mountain, water, earth, wind, thunder, fire, lake, and heaven. So each of those three, that hexagram contains 3 lines in those combinations, and it's in those combinations that you get the number and correspond to the passage in the I Ching. The original 8, each force with rows of 3 line combinations, were expanded to 64 hexagrams by King Wen of Zhao. So, what does that all mean? It basically is, they looked at, the ancient Chinese looked at every life situation as a combination of those elements. Okay? So in mountain, you would say cast 3 coins. And this is where the coins come in. You can either flip them like you're flipping a coin, or you can kind of shake them and cast them. And you assign value. So head is yin, tails is yang, just for an example. So then you would flip them, calculate the number, and enter it in and look it up in the I Ching. And I at first glance, this seems very complicated to me, because this is just out of my, it's out of my wheelhouse. And so if it sounds like I'm following the notes here, okay? So I'm trying to figure out how to clearly explain what this is when I've never actually done it. But it's fascinating because I have seen it. And I'm like, what is this? I need to know what this is. But every time I looked at it, I'm like, well, this is complicated and overwhelming. But I actually sat down and broke it down. But as I'm talking, I'm like, I feel like I'm confusing myself more. So if anybody watching, either live or in the YouTube, if you have any resources or experience with I Ching, I would love to hear it and help me understand a little bit more. So it went from the original 8 trigrams to the hexagrams, and Confucius meditated on the I Ching extensively. Generations of Chinese people at all levels use the I Ching to predict outcomes. Carl Jung described the I Ching as a spiritual agency. Now, these are his words: a spiritual agency that helps people to choose a meaningful and responsible way to respond to change. So the issues that we're seeing now in modern life are actually nothing different. These are all reflected in the I Ching. Okay, and again, Benabel Wen, as part of her I Ching course, you can download PDF version of her translation of the I Ching, or you can get it bound and printed. And I have actually seen a few resources that recommend her book of changes. The interesting thing that I found out was the binary system in math, the 01001111, that evolved from the I Ching. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz was a German polymath and philosopher, founded the binary system, and he used the ideas of the yin and the yang, right? The single line and the broken line, single line, broken line. So our entire kind of computer language binary system is from the I Ching. Tao and the I Ching started separately, but they came together. So you will very often see the I Ching referenced in Tao metaphysics. At this point, they are very much intertwined. The I Ching was one of the first kind of occult texts in China. It began as divination and occult in nature. Remember, occult means hidden. So it was something that not everybody had access to. It was a sacred text that was initially accessible to priests and priestesses, and even certain concubines would have access to the I Ching, and kings and noblemen would go to them to consult the I Ching. In modern witchcraft, in modern spellcraft terms, the I Ching is a grimoire. How to create and activate change. Because it's the book of changes, right? And what do we do when we cast a spell? When we do spell work, when we pray? Those are all ways to create and activate change. So the I Ching is a grimoire in a way. And again, that was Benabel Wen goes into this, and she has a course in Tao metaphysics, sorry. And she goes into this very deeply. And again, that symbolism that you're going to see with the coins and the hexagrams, that is all. Yeah. So it's kind of here where it goes tails, 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 2, 2, 2, and you get that. So again, it takes a little bit to get into the methods of actually getting the numbers, but after you get the numbers, you correspond it to the I Ching. So far we've learned the I Ching is the book, okay? And then the methods that we get the numbers to correspond to are yarrow sticks are traditional. So there's a bundle of yarrow sticks, which are yarrow is the wood, and it basically they look like pickup sticks. When I looked at them and when I watched people doing them, you can use yarrow straws, coin toss, rice grains, or cardamancy. So how do you do it? And this is where it's probably going to sound confusing. Okay. So you do it a few different ways. You can do the coin toss. Okay. Where if you're doing the, you would flip 3 coins 3 times. And then you get the solid line, the broken line, the yin and the yang. And then you add those values up. So again, if tails is 2 and you get 3 of them in a row, so that's 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. Your number 6. And then after you have the value of the coins, that's how you get, and again, then you refer back to the I Ching to get that passage. Um, learning the meaning of the numbers. Each numbers corresponds to different things in the I Ching system. Um, if you're using the yarrow stick, the bean, or the rice method, what you do is you have that pile or that lot of sticks, and you separate it out into two. So you have two piles, and then from the two piles, you pull out four from each until you have three or fewer in each pile, and then you add those up. And I believe the number, there isn't a specific number. I think for the bean method, people would kind of grab handfuls, plop it down, split it up, and pull four out until that kind of narrows down. The yarrow sticks, again, the same way. You have them, you kind of spread them out, and then you pull them out. So to use the I Ching, you need a method to get the hexagram number. And that's where the different methods come into play. You get your number, then you read the book, and then you get that passage. So I'm going to be looking more into this so I understand it more. I started watching different YouTube videos of people doing different casting methods, and it is definitely a lot of time goes into it. So that's pretty much what I have on Intro to I Ching. Remember, as part of this Dive into Divination series, I will not only be tackling divination methods that I'm familiar with and I practice. What I'm going to be doing is also looking into ones that I'm not quite as well versed on, and we're going to learn together. After this big five, so we've done tarot, we've done runes, we've done astrology, and now I Ching. So next week we're going to look at numerology and how we can use numerology in divination. So after that, I'm going to be doing looking into different variations of those, different methods of divination, how they're used, where they're used. I might go into like historical. Really, it's all open for a suggestion. I will take any suggestions for a method. If you have one that you really like, again, reach out, put it in the comments. So hopefully this is going to be a learning journey for all of us. And I want to thank you very much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting and sharing. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.